right, hey guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm glad that you could all jump on the webinar this morning with us. I hope your summer's going well. One of the things we're going to talk about today is directly related to summer. We're going to talk about crabgrass. And crabgrass is obviously, it's a big deal for us in the lawn care industry. It's one of our biggest issues that we deal with over the course of the summertime. For the most part in transition zones and in cool season in the northern part of the country, not necessarily so much in the south, mainly because crabgrass is a warm season forage grass. So it's sort of in the same style as some of the typical turf grasses that they've got in the south. So I'm guessing that of the 25 or so on the line today, most of you are from transition or northern area zones. And that makes sense because crabgrass is an issue for most of us up here. A couple housekeeping issues before we get started. As usual, feel free to ask as many questions as you like by typing them into the console there of the GoToMeeting thing up on your screen. Questions are good, especially when we're talking about a topic like this. We absolutely appreciate and will welcome answering questions that you ask, either within the confines of the webinar itself or at the end, either way. Secondly, if anybody's having a hard time hearing me or you can't see the screen or something, let me know and we'll make an adjustment. My name's Tom Kelly. I'm the founder of Be Safe Lawns here. I've been in the lawn care. I've been fighting crabgrass since 1993. Maybe that's what my business card should say. Tom Kelly, fighting crabgrass since 1993. And there have been better years than others. This year isn't, I don't think, one of the worst years we've ever had with crabgrass after the disaster we had last year and the year before where everything set up perfectly for a crabgrass outbreak. It's kind of a relief almost to have not the year off, because we certainly have plenty of issues with crabgrass going on, just not as bad as it was last year or the year before. So most of you guys have probably been on our what we call our Lawn Care in the 21st Century webinars. We do them all the time, and we have for a couple of years. Most of the time I post them on the blog section of the Be Safe Lawns dealer site. So if you go to dealer.besafelawns.com/blog, you'll find it. If you can't remember that, which, you know, who can, just go to besafelawns.com and navigate your way over to the section to become a dealer, and there'll be a blog there. And we post them. We always talk about topical things within the industry, everything from marketing to agronomics. We have a little bit of a tilt towards organics because that's what we do here at Be Safe Lawns. Be Safe is a dealer network of lawn and landscape companies who offer an alternative or organic program to their customers. And I'm happy to say we just finally brought on our 100th location just this week, which is a good thing. We wanted to get to 100 this spring, and we didn't make it, but that's okay. We made it to 100 over the summer, and we're doing very, very well. And I know that lots of you guys on the line today are already members of the Be Safe Network. If you are not, I think you should consider it. So let's go ahead and start talking about crabgrass. Everybody deals with crabgrass. If you're on today's call, you're familiar with it, and you're familiar with the old adage. If you've ever gone to a service call at one of your customers' houses and the customer is really mad at you, they just can't understand, you know, how come they have crabgrass. It's terrible, and they point to their neighbor's lawn and they say, my neighbor, they don't even have a lawn care service and they don't have any crabgrass. They don't have any crabgrass. I have crabgrass. You are responsible for the crabgrass in my lawn, as if you had a little baggie of crabgrass seeds sometime back in April and propagated them on your customers' lawns. It's your fault. For some reason, crabgrass makes people crazy, and maybe we should clarify a little bit. A lot of times consumers or homeowners don't always know the difference between crabgrass or weeds, or, you know, it's usually just weeds, or anything that's not perfect turf in the middle of summer is enough to make somebody crazy, and it's always your fault. And you can use this as an opportunity to build relationships with your customers, although I'll be honest, after I don't know, 15 years or so about getting yelled at about crabgrass, I began to lose my patience, because it's one of those things where people can act irrationally. But, you know, you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt and look at it as an opportunity to improve your customer service and build loyalty with your customers. So even though it's a little bit of a basic subject, let's talk about crabgrass for 30 minutes, half an hour, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. We'll talk about crabgrass, what it is and what we can do to deal with it, how you can deal with your customers. And let's just put a whole bunch of stuff out there. And the more we know about any given subject, the more confident we can speak about it, and the more our customers trust us, and the more our customers trust us, the more they refer their friends and family to become more customers. So being educated in what you do is certainly very, very important in our business. So crabgrass, at its very core, is an annual weed that can consume you as fast as it consumes your customers' lawns in July and August. There's little or no doubt that crabgrass is by far the biggest adversary to the quality of any turf environment, and it's quite literally impossible to ignore. Does anybody on the line have no issues with crabgrass ever? Go ahead and feel free to type them in if you're in such a good place that you don't ever have to deal with crabgrass. You certainly can't ignore it. It's a big issue. We've got a location in the mountains of Colorado, and their service season goes from like May to September, and it's one, I don't think they're on today, but it's one of the only places I think I've ever dealt with somebody who just doesn't have any issue with crabgrass. The temperatures are so cool, and the season is so short that weeds and crabgrass are not an issue. But anywhere else on the planet, I believe, is, or at least in the north, crabgrass is a problem. So turf experts have attempted to offer products and advice over the years, but it seems that nobody has found a fail-safe way to deal with this seasonal issue that can make you feel like every single one of your customers is going to cancel. The old sky is falling mentality. If you've got 100 customers and 10 of them call and yell at you about crabgrass, you automatically begin to think that every single one of your customers is unhappy and is going to cancel. And you know, there's that 3 a.m. Position where you're just staring at the ceiling thinking you're going to go out of business. I've been there. And the truth is that that's never going to happen. Even if you've got an outbreak of crabgrass on your lawns, it is not the end of the world. The issue is that more and more people are offering you advice and products and things, and it's just always something going on. And if you feel that this just keeps getting worse and worse and worse, you're certainly not alone. It's something that we all deal with all the time. So crabgrass is a summer annual weed. It grows in the summertime. It will go to seed towards the end of the summertime, and then it dies. Those seeds that get spread, and there can be lots of seeds, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of seeds when you've got a good outbreak of crabgrass, not to mention seeds that have laid dormant in the soil for years and years and years. Those will germinate when soil temperatures the following spring reach 60 degrees or so. The crabgrass plant then, grows and will die with the first frost, but we know that the growth really slows down in the late summer and into fall. It becomes less of an issue or less noticeable. The issue is that it grows much faster than our cool season turf grasses that like to slow down growing in the summertime. They don't want to grow. Crabgrass as a summer grass takes off and grows much faster. So we control crabgrass with pre-emergence and post-emergence. Things like dimension and barricade and pendimethalin. I remember back in the olden days when we would all use pre-em. It was yellow, dusty yellow. We'd all be covered in crabgrass pre-emergent. Our clothes would be stained. Our laundry rooms would be stained. Lots of companies still use that. Organically speaking, we use a granular corn gluten or a liquid corn gluten. As a post-emergent, there's lots of stuff out there. We used to use Acclaim or MSMA. There's Drive. Quinstar, quinclorac is the active ingredient. Tenacity is a new product out there. There's lots of stuff on the market for you guys to deal with crabgrass. And for some reason, no matter what we do all the time, I mean, you'll be on a lawn that you've broken out every weapon you've got, and it's still loaded up with crabgrass. So it's a fact of life. There's not a lot you can do with it. If you've chosen to be in this silly business and industry, you're going to have to deal with it. It's often out of your control, right? The germination, the growth of this weed is not something that you have an immediate control over. A lot of times, more and more, I hear companies using, 2 or even 3 apps of a pre-emergent, chemical pre-emergent to reduce crabgrass. And I don't think that's a good idea. I really don't. The pre-emergent chemical is very, very dangerous and damaging to soil biology, so it's a trade-off. If you want to try to prevent your crabgrass germination by using way too many chemicals, it's going to affect the quality of your turf moving forward. But so even though the growth of crabgrass is out of your control, how you deal with it and how you deal with your customers is in your control. So let's talk about 6 very important things to ponder when faced with a crabgrass outbreak. And this was a white paper that we wrote that most of you, hopefully, you've downloaded. If you haven't, let me know and we can get it out to you. But there's 6 things to ponder when we're thinking about crabgrass. First and foremost, as I said earlier, it is not the end of the world. This year, again, it hasn't been so bad, but last year, it was close to the end of the world, and we had companies really, really panicking, really, because there was, just to review real quick, we had a very, very rainy June. I don't know if you guys remember last year, but it rained, I don't remember specifically, but probably 6 or 7 inches in June. It just didn't stop raining. It was a very, very wet June. Then July was really hot and humid. Really, really hot and humid with many, many days over 90 degrees, and the humidity was oppressive. And we really kind of set up a greenhouse effect where there was really just saturated soil, saturated weed seeds, just all kind of being encapsulated by hot air. And crabgrass just really grew out of control, I mean, uncontrollably, and it was very difficult for many lawn care services to handle the complaints from their customers. It felt like it was the end of the world. But the most important thing that you need to think about here is that it's not going to cause you to go out of business. It's not going to ruin your reputation, and here's why. It's a temporary thing. Just by its very nature, crabgrass is temporary because it's an annual weed. It's going to grow, go to seed, and go away. Once you get over the dog days of summer, which we're in right now, it's going to slow way down. Its growth is going to slow down significantly. It's going to stop growing when it reaches its maturity, and then when we get that first frost, or a lot of times even before that, it reaches the end and it goes away. So what's the lesson here? Don't panic. Try not to panic. Even though you feel like the sky is falling, it's not the end of the world. Like all things, this too shall pass. Trust me, I've been through it 21 times, and every one of those 21 times, at least once, somebody wants to yell at me about crabgrass. Most of many years, it's been more than once, hundreds of times. I don't think anybody's been yelled at about crabgrass more than me, and every year, it goes away. It ends. 2, communication is key, guys. If you're going to ignore a crabgrass outbreak, you're going to make it worse, okay? So don't ignore it. Don't pretend like it's not happening. You're going to take more cancels if you pretend like it's not there than you will if you tackle it head on. You need to talk about it through all of your channels, on Facebook, on your newsletter, even on invoices, leave-behinds, everything that you, any instance of communication with your current, existing, or potential customers, acknowledge it, talk about it, and people will respect that. If you ignore it, and hopefully you hope your customers ignore it too. They're not. Many times you'll get complaints, of course, and you'll do more service calls than ever before, but it's that silent majority that you kind of have to worry about a little bit. They're just like, yeah, I'm not going to bother calling the lawn guy. I'm just not going to use him next year, right? And then your cancel rate will go up, and we don't want that. We want to keep our cancel rate down. So do as best you can to communicate with your customers about what's going on with it. That's what they hire you for. So here's a lot of text on this slide, which is a no-no with PowerPoints. But when we talk about post-emergent controls, that's what people want. If you've got crabgrass in in your customers' lawns or a homeowner has crabgrass in the lawn, they want you to get rid of it. And you have to be able to respond to that. It's very important, but it's not the only answer. And here's why I'm saying that. Blanket applications can cost a fortune. If you haven't budgeted in a lot of money for post-emergent herbicides, then it's going to eat up your margin, and that's not what we want. A lot of times they don't work that great either, depending on the coverage. But with that being said, your customers certainly want you to address the issue, so you have to. So if somebody says, come out and spray my crabgrass, you have to. That doesn't mean you automatically start, dumping, a post-emergent in your tank and spraying every square inch of your customers' lawns with post-emergent. You're going to go broke doing that. You need to at least be able to do that if you have to, if you've got such a massive outbreak of crabgrass that you're going to have to spray the whole lawn. But for the most part, you want to spot treat. And we can talk about some post-emergent controls a little bit later on, and a couple people have already asked questions about that. We'll touch on that. Out back here at NTI headquarters, we've got 3 test plots where we're doing crabgrass experiments, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now remember that this problem is going to solve itself when temperatures go down. The crabgrass plant's going to reach maturity. It's going to go away. So don't break the bank spraying chemicals. Doesn't make sense, but don't ignore it either. Your customers are going to have a pretty short memory, and crabgrass goes away, lawns look good in fall, and you're heroic once again. You go from 0 to hero pretty quick as a lawn guy or a lawn girl. This one's important here, and this is where we find that under an organic program we have much less of a problem with crabgrass, but you have to be mindful of your fertility program. So water-soluble fertilizer, when it's applied in the summer, is just going to be used up by crabgrass right away. So for those of you who are using or running a chemical fertilizer in the summer, and your crabgrass explosion just gets worse and worse, it's your fault, okay? You're doing things to make it worse. We're creating multiple generations of crabgrass too, and it's because we fertilize it, right? We fertilize our lawns all summer long where we probably shouldn't be using as much nitrogen as we are. You need to reduce your nitrogen inputs in the summer because your cool season turf grasses don't want to be fertilized, genetically speaking. The name of this thing is called God Makes Crabgrass. Well, God also makes cool season turf grasses that don't want to grow in July. So that means you shouldn't fertilize them. Crabgrass plants have very, very shallow roots. If you pull a crabgrass plant out of the ground, you'll see that it's just, very short, wimpy, weak roots that don't go down very far. So every drop of water and every, granule of fertilizer that gets applied to that lawn is going to be absorbed by the crabgrass first, because your turf grass roots are much lower than crabgrass, and your crabgrass plants are going to absorb fertilizer. So be mindful of that. Make sure that you have properly timed fertility treatments, and you want to make sure that you're getting significant fertility in advance of summer. A lot of times I hear companies, waiting on getting out on the road. We have a saying around here, we want to have three by the 4th. 3 applications done by the 4th of July. So right now you should be on round 4, even round 5, starting round 5. 3 applications of a fertilizer prior to July 4th will really, really reduce your crabgrass issues a lot because your turf is growing vigorously and it's going to compete with it. So be mindful of your fertility program. Chemical fertilizers are making your crabgrass situation much worse. Cultural practices count. I like this line here. You've been getting the same cultural advice for years and years. Some of it's good and some of it's gibberish, but it has to be a part of your strategy. The hardcore organic people, say, oh, I'll never, crabgrass, oh man, I'm never going to use anything to deal with crabgrass because if I just have thick, healthy lawns and my customers mow really tall, I'll have no crabgrass. Well, yeah, in theory that makes sense. Yep, but your customers don't mow tall all the time. Mowing is going to, create issues with crabgrass. You need something, but the cultural practices do count. You do need to always tell your customers to mow high. Crabgrass is going to germinate based on soil temperatures. That's why you've always got it around the edges of driveways and roads and stuff. And when when air temperatures spike, the soil temperatures spike, and it's important that you can do everything you can to keep those soil temperatures minimized, which is mowing high, or returning your clippings, watering deeply. These are all really important, but it's not, it's not going to solve everything. You need to deal with it in many other ways, including those pre- and post-emergent controls and the way in which you communicate with your customers. It's amazing. We all know how customers mow their lawns. The way in which you mow your lawn or your customers' lawns is the #1 factor when it comes to dealing with crabgrass. I used to be able to predict the messages on the answering machine at Lawn Dog about 8 days after a 90-degree day. So if it was 95 degrees on a Saturday and everybody's out mowing their lawn at 2 in the afternoon and just mowing it down to 2 inches, about 7 days later I'd have 30 crabgrass calls, because it's directly related to the way you mow your lawn. So cultural practices do count. They really, really do. Mow high, water deeply. And tell your customers that they need to do the same thing. That's the sixth. Number 6, C #1. It's not the end of the world. So the 6th element of our crabgrass discussion is go back to #1. And #1 was just chill out about it. Don't worry. The sky is not falling. You're not going to go out of business. Take a deep breath. I can't tell you how many times even members of the BeSafe network, especially last year, on more than a few occasions would pick up the phone and call me and just yell at me. And just not yell at me because they blamed me for the crabgrass. Oh, well, sometimes, but just because they got to get it off their chest. But take a deep breath. Relax about it. Understand that you're not alone with this issue. Even if you think the sky is falling, today it just may be, but it isn't the end of the world, okay? It is not the end of the world. Be honest and truthful with your customers. Be confident in your assessments. You can get through this. That's the karma, lawn care karma. I talk about it a lot. Don't panic. Everything's going to be all right. Take a deep breath. Have a cup of tea. Have a cup of coffee. Let's talk a little bit about what we do a little bit differently in organics, because we're learning more and more about how to deal with this without just using chemicals all the time. And we know that no matter how much we tell our customers how to mow and water, they don't listen. But we're learning more and more all the time about how soil has an incredible effect on crabgrass. So within the confines of an organic program, guys, the application of biological inputs have as much of an impact as the application of pre- and post-emergence. And what we often sort of theorized about for many years was kind of proven recently with some tests, some research that was done on the crabgrass plant itself. This research was done mainly on crabgrass growing in crop fields, on soy and corn. You think crabgrass is a problem in lawns, try growing a cornfield. So I don't know if you guys knew it, but the recent research has determined that the real reason crabgrass tends to take over so quickly is because the plant itself is producing oleochemicals, and that means an oleochemical is something that a plant or an organism produces on its own to protect itself. So in the initial stages of germination and during that first tiller and second tiller stage, the crown of the plant of crabgrass is literally reducing this 3 specific chemicals, and I won't get into the actual science of it. I can send you this research, so please request it if you'd like. There are 3 specific chemicals that the crabgrass plant is putting out around the crown of the plant to destroy soil biology. And when there's no soil biology, that turf grass, the good turf grass, the cool season turf, is going to stop growing. And when the turf stops growing, it doesn't compete with crabgrass. So the crabgrass has sort of free reign. So the sudden reduction in soil health is going to prevent existing turf grass from being able to put up a fight against the crabgrass. And the outcome is that crabgrass explosion happens. Now we know that sometimes we're looking at our customers' lawns 1 week, and then 2 weeks later, we've got crabgrass like, you can't imagine. It just completely takes over and explodes. It often coincides with heat and drought and mowing incorrectly and everything else. But the reason is because those crabgrass plants are producing oleochemicals to hurt the existing turf grass. So what we did here at BeSafe, this is our first year working on it after last year's real kind of terrible year with crabgrass, is we've modified a couple of our products. One product we have, it's called growth activator. It's a biological inoculant. We added to it. We changed the biology around a little bit, and we put a couple of things in there to try to do a couple of different things. One, we want to repopulate the soil biology all the time. If a crabgrass plant is going to destroy the soil biology around its crown, we want to be able to repopulate it. We want to have that fight between the good guys and the bad guys going on. There's also some things in there that are designed to kind of counteract the effect of those oleochemicals, to stop them from damaging the soil. So it's a 1-2 punch. We want to reverse or contradict the effect of the oleochemicals are having, and we want to be able to repopulate the biology around the crown of the plant. So we've seen, and I've seen it firsthand, a decrease in crabgrass, really because of this approach, because a constant, and the first 3 rounds of the year include this product where we really want to build up the soil biology and contradict the effect that the oleochemicals are having on the soil. We've seen a decrease in crabgrass because of this. Now, the study itself was done by some graduate students or doctoral candidates in China. So it's not exactly interesting or fun, beach reading. It's pretty dense. But if you want to read it and you want to look at it, either just Google crabgrass study and you'll come up with it. Actually, I think you have to buy the study, and I did. It came out last year. So I'd be happy to forward it to you so that if you're a real soil geek, you might have an interest in it. And it has a direct impact on the quality of our lawns. I mean, that's the type of research that we depend on to be able to get better all the time. We want to reduce and hopefully eliminate the amount of pesticides that we're using. And it's not just a crapshoot. We have to depend on research and development of things to make that a reality. And it's happening in real life. So we've got a bunch of questions that you guys have typed in over the last half an hour or so, and I'm going to address them. But I kind of want to end, on this note. It's a goofy cartoon. People go crazy over crabgrass. They really, really do. And, as much as we see it as a negative, and it's a battle that we always, kind of take on, it's why people hire you. So, I learned myself that, I don't want to stress out about crabgrass. I want to address it with my customers the best I can, because if it weren't for these types of issues, you wouldn't have a job, right? If it weren't for, people wanting to have a nice weed-free lawn, there'd be no need for you. So it's not that we embrace crabgrass, but we want to be able to be professional in our approach and our communication and our knowledge on how to address it. And we should be thankful that people are so into it as much as they are. And this is a funny cartoon because people go to amazing lengths to get rid of crabgrass. So I'm going to take some questions. Feel free to type more in. I got a bunch already. In the meantime, the reason we do these webinars and these educational series are because we want to get in touch with you about the potential for joining the BeSafe network. These are the things we talk about all the time. So if you have any interest in becoming a member of the BeSafe network, you can contact Dick at the information on the screen. Dick is our Director of Dealer Development, and he can get you set up with some really cool stuff to begin the process. And as we head towards the end of the summer and into fall, certainly the best time to think about doing it. Don't wait until spring because we want to help you market this service to make sales. And the best time to do that is in the fall and in the off season going into spring, not when spring is on top of us. So contact Dick if you want more information about that. So let me go right to the questions, and I encourage you to type more questions in. The first question is kind of right up our alley, and it's about corn gluten. It's more of a statement than it is a question about granular corn gluten, and Joe is saying that it doesn't work, and Joe is right. Granular corn gluten is kind of tricky, and it's a little bit of a contradiction. Over the years, or maybe 10 years ago when corn gluten got pretty popular, it was sort of a cure-all for preventative control of grassy weeds on an organic level. And it didn't really work out, and sometimes that's left a bad taste in people's mouths in terms of organic lawn care. When the University of Iowa kind of discovered that corn gluten, which is a sort of a product of the milling of corn, the production of corn into corn syrup and everything else, corn gluten, the extract has qualities that when a crabgrass or annual seed germinate, the root system doesn't develop appropriately or properly, and the tiny baby plant dies. The initial research showed that you needed 70 pounds of corn gluten to get that effect, 70 pounds per 1,000 square feet. A granular corn gluten is an excellent source of nitrogen, and it's usually a 10-0-0, 10% nitrogen. So if you were to apply 70 pounds of that per 1,000 square feet to get that desired effect, you're talking about 7 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet all at once. That's just, I bet nobody would ever do that. Take cost out of it, pretend like cost wasn't, pretend, you know, corn gluten was free. You would never even consider putting 70 pounds per 1,000 square feet of anything on anybody's lawn. It would take forever. It would probably snuff the lawn out to begin with. So that initial research showed you needed that much to get that effect. Over the years, it was reduced down, and most granular corn gluten products are labeled to be applied at 20 pounds per 1,000 square feet, giving you 2 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. At $40 a bag or so, that's a real expensive application, and there were many professionals who kind of bought into that, and heck, they weren't going to apply 20 pounds per 1,000 square feet because it would cost more to buy the product than it would that they were able to charge their customers for the entire year. So as a result, maybe we were applying granular corn gluten at 4 or 5 pounds per 1,000 square feet, which is more sensible in terms of a granular product, but you'd get absolutely no effect whatsoever on pre-emergent, controls at all, zero. And that would be a letdown for people. So while we really do approve of granular corn gluten as a fertilizer and perhaps an addendum to your existing program, we don't want to depend on it as a crabgrass preventative. There are other products related to that. One that we have here we call it spray and play, but it's a liquid corn gluten. It's a hydrolysate, and it's processed to the point where the nitrogen is taken out. It's much more concentrated, and it is a 1-0-0. It's easier to apply because it's a liquid. We've got really, really good feedback on that. It is a little bit expensive, and you need to apply it at a high rate, at 32 ounces per 1,000 square feet. A lot of people will kind of bust that up into 2 applications, maybe 16 ounces each. But never heard any negative feedback about the liquid corn gluten other than the cost and the amount that you need to apply. In fact, many people who do use it will put it up against any chemical control any day. In fact, we've got a couple locations that have a chemical lawn and an organic lawn right next to each other, and the measure of control from the chemical pre-emergent versus the liquid gluten is about the same, and I think some have even said it works even a little better. That's probably related to all the biology that's being applied later on, but so corn gluten, to answer your question, Joe, we do not approve of it as a good source of a pre-emergent. As part of a bigger whole, sure, absolutely, it's a great fertilizer, just isn't a great pre-emergent. So what is a good control product? Well, that liquid gluten is a great pre-emergent. Post-emergent wise, what we've used this year a lot, even though it's not certified organic, it's really organically acceptable, is a product called Tenacity. Has anybody used Tenacity this year? It's the first year I've really messed around with it myself. Anybody? Okay, nobody's chiming in on the Tenacity. Tenacity is an EPA registered low-risk herbicide. So it's still an herbicide. It's certainly not, organic by any stretch, but it's a chemical or synthesized chemical. The company that makes it is a man-made version of the bottlebrush plant extract. The bottlebrush plant is a plant that grows in the desert, and researchers found that there were never any weeds growing around the bottlebrush plant. Oleochemicals, right, guys? So we were just talking about that. The bottlebrush plant produces an oleochemical that controls weeds, so weeds don't move in on it. It allows it to grow freely. And they synthesize that extract, and it acts as both a pre-emergent and a post-emergent on a long list of weeds. It works really differently than most chemicals you've used before. It works slowly. It prevents the plant from photosynthesizing. So instead of kind of killing a plant, poisoning it the way most herbicides do, it just slowly leads to death. The side effect here is that, especially with crabgrass, if you spray Tenacity on fully grown and matured crabgrass, it turns it white. About 2 weeks after you apply Tenacity, you kind of forget that you did it, and then almost overnight, the plant turns bleach white because it's no longer photosynthesizing and it's no longer able to grow. Then for about 2 weeks after that, it just slowly dies. Now it's a great low-impact way to control crabgrass and other weeds, but if it's late in the season, you may get some negative feedback on the color. Sometimes it's better to have green crabgrass than it is to have white crabgrass. There are other products out there. Probably the most common now is Drive with quinclorac, which is the active ingredient. There's a newer version called Drive Accelerate. Chemical. It's a chemical post-emergent. It's something that you want to be very careful with using. But as we always say around here, if your customer says, please kill this crabgrass with a chemical or I'm going to cancel, what you do is you kill that crabgrass with a chemical to prevent them from canceling every single time. You don't ever want to treat your lawns based on your own advocacy. You want to treat your lawns based on your customer's advocacy. And your customers don't want crabgrass, and if they tell you to get rid of it and your only thing you can do is to kill it with Drive, I totally suggest you do. Take one step back, take 2 steps forward. You know what, Rich, this is a question I asked early on about nutsedge. And it kind of, nutsedge is way different than crabgrass. Nutsedge is a sedge. It's not an annual. Well, it is an annual. It's also a perennial, but it does go to seed. It is really difficult to control, and it seems to be getting much worse in recent years, especially in wet areas. Areas I hear from New Jersey all the time and the Jersey Shore that crabgrass is completely out of control. There are chemical products out there, but I'll go back to Tenacity with this. Tenacity is labeled for and effectively does control nutsedge. It does turn it white, not quite as white as crabgrass, but it acts as a pre and post-emergent on nutsedge. The other products you can use, Rich, again, Drive Accelerate, I believe, is labeled for nutsedge. Manage is a product that's labeled for nutsedge. The funny thing is that most of those products are claimed to be pre-emergence as much as post-emergence, and I've never had the experience of preventing nutsedge. It's something that you need to proactively deal with as opposed to reactively deal with. So you're not alone in that one, Rich. It's definitely an issue with many of us, and it seems to be getting much, much worse. Okay, here's, overseeding. Overseeding is a great way. This goes back to that cultural controls slide we did. The best defense against any weeds is to have thick turf, thick, high-cut turf that shades the soil and competes with weeds. So one thing you can certainly do, and it's a great revenue producer, is aerate and overseed all of your customers in the late summer and fall with a improved variety of turf. Ryegrass, bluegrass, tall turf-type tall fescues are great. The more you can thicken up the turf, the more you're going to crowd out crabgrass or prevent it from germinating in the first place, because the soil is shaded, and we want to keep that soil temperature down as much as we can. Any other questions, guys? I think I kind of indirectly hit on all of them. Going once, going twice. I think I'm right on time, and I've kept your attention, which is really good. Yep, we're right at 45 minutes, and everybody who started with us is still with us, and that's a good thing. So I'll wrap up. Unless you've got any other questions, guys, feel free to type them in. If you want to speak with us directly, you want to ask me questions about crabgrass privately, feel free to give me a call anytime at that same number that's up on the screen. And again, if you're interested in thinking about looking into the Be Safe Network, contact Dick. And we've got some great opportunities for you guys to join in. Our lawns are looking good. Our organic lawns are looking really, really good this year, and we're really happy with our program and our products. And we've got continued research and development all the time, and all of our locations are growing, which is important, and they're profitable. That's as important as well. So, all right, guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm happy we could spend some time together, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Thanks.